It's Monday afternoon. Two girls are working on a school project along with two other friends. Everything's normal. And then, without warning, the door bursts open, revealing a man standing there with a gun in his hand. Now, this isn't just some random break-in, as you might be thinking. This isn't a robbery. In fact, both girls know all too well who the man at the door is, and he has planned this moment for months. For the next 100 hours, he will lock these girls inside this apartment, and during those hours, he will do terrible things to them. Things that will shock an entire nation. All of it will be documented live on Brazilian television. It is a sunny day in 2008 in São Paulo, Brazil. 15-year-old Eloa Cristina Pimentel grabbed the door handle to her apartment, opened it, and stepped outside. She lived with her parents and older brother in that very apartment. Her mother Anna, her father Aldo, and her brother Douglas. After opening the door, she made her way outside, shut the door behind her, and crossed the street. After walking for a few minutes, she reached a bus stop, where she sat down to get some fresh air and enjoy a moment of peace. But that peace wouldn't last very long. As Eloa sat there, she was suddenly jolted by a loud, screaming voice. When she turned her head to look, she saw an angry-looking man approaching, yelling and shouting at her. As he got closer, he began physically assaulting her for no apparent reason. This man was 22-year-old Lindenberg Fernandes Alves, and he was Eloa's boyfriend. This kind of behaviour had sadly become a pattern in their relationship. Lindenberg would often pick fights with Eloa, yelling and even assaulting her for no clear reason. Lindenberg was known to be a bit of a douchebag around the neighbourhood. She had finally had enough, so she broke up with him. On the afternoon of Monday, October 16th, Eloa and her best friend Nayara, along with two other guys, made their way to Eloa's apartment to work on a school project. Her brother Douglas was still at school, and her parents were at work, so the four teenagers would be alone. As they were working on the project, they began to hear those noises at the door, followed by the door bursting open, revealing that man standing there with a gun in his hand. And that man was Lindenberg. After locking the door behind him, he pointed his pistol at the group. When Eloa tried to stop him, he slapped her across the face. He started venting his frustrations about the three others being there. He had expected to find Eloa alone, but because they had a project to work on, her friends had come with her. Over the next following minutes, the rest of the group, including Lindenberg, sat in silence, him holding them all at gunpoint. That silence was soon broken by the jiggling of the doorknob. Someone was trying to open it. Lindenberg yelled at the person outside to stay away, warning that he had a gun and was pointing it at Eloa and her friends. If anyone tried to come in, he would hurt them. The person at the door was Eloa's father, along with her brother Douglas. Upon hearing Lindenberg's threats, they quickly contacted the police, who rushed to the scene, only to be met with Lindenberg holding the group at gunpoint. The police swiftly began negotiating with him to release the hostages, and at first things actually started off well. Lindenberg agreed to release the two boys, leaving only Eloa and Nayara inside the apartment with him. Word about the situation quickly began to spread, and people from around the neighbourhood started gathering outside to witness it unfold in person. As time passed, the crowd grew into a massive mob. Reporters also began arriving, broadcasting the ongoing standoff live on television. When Lindenberg turned on the TV and realised he was being shown live, he began peeking through the windows, looking at the crowd and the cameras. Using Eloa as a human shield to protect himself from possible sniper fire, he started firing shots out the window, almost as if he were performing for the cameras. Slowly, he began dismissing the negotiators. He also forced Eloa to retrieve the food he requested, using a cloth and still keeping her at gunpoint. The following day, Tuesday, the police, hoping to pressure him back into negotiations, cut the power to the apartment, leaving Lindenberg, Eloa, and Nayara in darkness. Enraged, he began shouting at the officers to turn the power back on, or he would start hitting the girls. The police agreed to restore the power, but only if he released one of them in return. Surprisingly, Lindenberg agreed and released Nayara. That left just Lindenberg and Eloa inside the apartment, the very girl he had come here for, the same girl who had broken his heart. When Wednesday came, the entire nation was watching the story unfold on their TV screens. Some reporters even went as far as tracking down the apartment's phone number to try to negotiate with Lindenberg themselves, despite having no experience in hostage situations whatsoever. When asked what he wanted, Lindenberg replied he planned to kill himself and Eloa. The ongoing crisis took a heavy toll on Eloa's father Aldo, who collapsed from the stress and had to be carried away on a stretcher to the hospital. One detective, who was watching the news from home like the rest of the country, noticed something on the screen, something no one at the scene seemed to have caught. Whatever it was, it made him sit up straight. Without hesitation, he gathered his team and rushed to the apartment building, not to assist with the negotiations but to carry out a completely separate operation of their own. By the fourth day, negotiations between Lindenberg and the police continue, with seemingly no resolution from either side. But then, out of nowhere, Lindenberg agrees to release Eloa on one condition. Douglas, her brother, and Nayara must come to the door to take her. The police agree, and both Nayara and Douglas are sent toward the apartment. But when they're halfway there, Lindenberg changes his mind. He says only Nayara should come forward, and Douglas must turn back. Once again, the police comply, instructing Douglas to retreat while Nayara continues alone. As Nayara reaches the door, it opens, but instead of Eloa, it's Lindenberg. He suddenly grabs Nayara by the hand, yanks her inside, and locks the door behind them. Just like that, the number of hostages is back to 2. After this betrayal, the police have had enough. It's been over 100 hours since negotiations began. They authorize a special tactical unit to storm the apartment and subdue Lindenberg once and for all. But there's a problem. Everything is being televised live, and Lindenberg is watching it unfold on TV inside the apartment. He sees and hears every move the police are preparing to make. Despite the risk, the special unit approaches the door and blasts it open using explosives. Inside, 3 shots ring out. It takes the officers about 7 seconds to enter. Nayara rushes out of the apartment, blood streaming from her face, and collapses into the arms of officers. She's been shot. The bullet passed through her hand and into her face near her nose. Eloa is found collapsed on the floor. She has been shot in the head and groin. Paramedics rush in, place her on a stretcher, and both girls are rushed to the hospital. As for Lindenberg, he is apprehended unharmed. He will later be sentenced to 30 years in prison. Meanwhile, the detective who had been watching this entire story unfold from home, the same one who noticed something on the screen, eventually makes his way to the scene. But by the time he's able to act on what he saw, it's already too late. What the detective recognized was Everaldo, or as he was known, Aldo, Eloa's father. The detective believed he had identified him as a wanted murderer in a double homicide that left a police chief and another man dead 10 years earlier. When the camera showed Aldo being carried away on a stretcher to the hospital, the detective was certain. But by the time he reached the scene, and even later at the hospital, Aldo was nowhere to be found. The detective suspects Aldo realized someone had recognized him and fled. He was right. However, his efforts were futile. A few days later, Aldo was caught, Everaldo, and arrested. Nayara makes a full recovery. But as for Eloa, she tragically passes away.